She entered the wrong room number on Christmas night. The man waiting inside wasn't a guest, he was a king, and she just walked into his war. Jade Jordan opened the wrong hotel room door at 11:53 p.m. on Christmas night, wearing a dress that still had the clearance tag tucked under the collar and shoes that had been torture for the last 3 hours. In exactly 4 minutes, gunshots would tear through the hallway outside that door. In exactly 2 hours, she would be in the back of an unmarked car, hands shaking, watching the city lights blur past as armed men drove her somewhere she couldn't name. But she didn't know any of that yet. Right now, she was standing in a dimly lit hallway on the wrong floor of the Belmont Hotel, squinting at a room number that looked right but felt wrong, cursing her dead phone and the fact that she'd stayed this long at a party where no one remembered her name. God, I hate Christmas, she thought, pressing her palm against the cold door frame. It wasn't the music or the decorations or the forced joy. It was the way the holiday held up a mirror and showed you exactly where you stood in the world. Tonight, she stood alone, in a hallway that smelled like expensive carpet cleaner and other people's happiness, reminded once again that some people belonged everywhere and some people belonged nowhere. Just another Christmas proving what she already knew. Some people get found, some people get forgotten. The work party had been predictable. Loud voices, weak cocktails, and that specific brand of loneliness that comes from being in a crowded room where no one sees you. She'd left without saying goodbye because no one was looking for her anyway. The hallway was too quiet, too still. Her phone had died in the elevator. The screen had blinked once, twice, then gone black, leaving her stranded between floors with a key card to a room she couldn't quite remember. Was it 1247? 1274? She knocked. No answer. The door was unlocked. Relief washed through her, cold and immediate. She didn't think, didn't check. Her feet hurt, her head ached, and she just wanted to collapse into bed and let this night end. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Finally, she breathed, reaching for the light switch. I thought I'd be wandering forever. The room wasn't empty. A man sat in the darkness near the window, framed by the glow of the city outside. His posture was too still, too controlled. One hand rested on the arm of the chair. The other held a gun. His eyes lifted to meet hers. They were cold, sharp, the kind of eyes that calculated threats before they calculated mercy. Jade's breath caught. Behind her, the door clicked shut. Not by accident. One of his men, she hadn't even seen him, stood blocking the exit, hand already moving to his waistband. The man in the chair tilted his head, studying her the way someone might study an insect that had flown into the wrong web. Who are you? His voice was low, controlled, edged with something lethal. Jade's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her mind screamed at her to move, to run, to explain, but her body had locked in place, instinct recognizing danger before logic could catch up. Her voice cracked. I think I have the wrong room. I'm so sorry. You'll stay exactly where you are. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The air in the room shifted. Jade's heart slammed against her ribs. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Fast, hard, multiple, shouting in the hallway outside that door. The man's eyes flicked toward the door, his jaw tightening. He stood in one fluid motion, the gun no longer resting. It was ready. Get down, he said. Jade didn't move. Now. The first gunshot shattered the silence. If this story has pulled you in, if you can feel the weight of that locked door and the danger breathing in the dark, take a moment to let us know you're here. Subscribe so we can keep crafting stories that refuse to let go. Like and share if this moment grabbed you, and drop a comment below. Tell us where in the world you're reading from tonight. Every name, every city reminds us why we write. Let's build this together. Jade hit the floor as glass exploded above her head. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know that Lucas Gray was a name whispered in fear across every dark corner of the city. didn't know that the room she'd stumbled into was a fortress, or that the men hunting him in the hallway were the kind that didn't leave witnesses. All she knew was that the wrong door had just become the only thing standing between her and a bullet. And the man who told her to get down, he was the reason they were shooting. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started. Jade lay flat against the carpet, hands pressed over her ears, heart hammering so hard she thought her chest might crack open. The silence that followed was worse than the noise, thick and waiting, like the air before lightning strikes. She heard movement, controlled, deliberate. Status? Lucas's voice cut through the quiet, calm as if he'd just asked someone to pass the salt. A voice crackled through what must have been an earpiece. Jade couldn't make out the words, but she heard the urgency in the tone. Lock down the floor, Lucas said. No one in or out. I don't care who they say they are.
Footsteps. Multiple. Moving fast down the hallway outside. Jade's breath came in shallow gasps. Her fingers dug into the carpet. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. People didn't get shot at in luxury hotels on Christmas night. This was a mistake. A horrible, impossible mistake that would end the moment she explained. Get up. She flinched at his voice. I said, get up. Jade pushed herself to her knees, then to her feet. Her legs shook. The room swam for a moment before her vision cleared. Lucas stood near the window now, backlit by the glow of the city. The gun was no longer in his hand, it had disappeared somewhere into his jacket, but his stillness was more threatening than any weapon. He watched her with the kind of focus that made her feel dissected, catalogued, assessed for value or threat. Behind her, the door was closed, locked. One of his men stood guard, face expressionless, hand resting casually near his concealed holster. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a war zone. And she'd walked right into the middle of it. Sit. Lucas gestured to the chair across from him. Jade's throat closed. I should go. I should just... Sit down. It wasn't loud. It wasn't harsh. But something in his tone made her legs move before her brain could argue. She sank into the chair, hands gripping the armrests so hard her knuckles went white. Lucas remained standing, studying her with those ice-cold eyes. Up close, she could see the details she'd missed in the darkness, the sharp line of his jaw, the expensive cut of his suit, the way his tie was perfectly knotted despite the chaos that had just erupted outside his door. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a shootout. But there was something else, something in the set of his shoulders, the controlled economy of his movements. This was a man who'd learned to be still, because stillness meant survival. Your name, he said. Jade. Her voice came out as a whisper. She tried again. Jade Jordan. Why are you here, Jade Jordan? I told you. Wrong room. I thought... She swallowed hard, forcing the words out. My phone died. I couldn't check my keycard. I thought this was 12:47. I just wanted to go to bed. I didn't know anyone was in here. I didn't know... Another burst of gunfire echoed through the building, distant this time, maybe 2 floors down. Jade's breath hitched. Lucas didn't even blink. What floor are you registered to? 12, room 1247. I work for Meridian Consulting. We had a Christmas party downstairs. I left early. I just wanted to go home, but I couldn't get a car, so I got a room instead. But then my phone died and She was rambling, words tumbling over each other, but she couldn't stop. I swear I didn't know anyone was in here. I knocked. No one answered. The door was unlocked, and I just... Stop. She stopped. He tilted his head slightly, the way a predator might when deciding whether something was prey or merely irrelevant. For a long moment he said nothing, just watched her with those unreadable eyes. Then, quietly, I believe you. Relief crashed through her so hard she nearly sobbed. But that doesn't mean you're leaving. The relief died. Jade stared at him. What? You walked into the wrong room at the wrong time. His voice remained perfectly level, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. You saw my face, you heard my voice, you know which floor I'm on and what room I'm in.
I won't tell anyone, I swear. I don't even know who you are. Exactly. He took a step closer. Not threatening, just closing the distance. You don't know who I am, which means you don't know why those men were shooting. You don't know what they'd do to find me, and you don't know what they'd do to anyone who might lead here. Understanding hit her like a fist to the stomach. You think they'll come after me. I know they will. He said it like a fact, like gravity. If you walk out that door right now, you become a liability, a loose thread, and people in my world don't leave loose threads. But I didn't do anything. You were here. That's enough. Outside, voices shouted. Footsteps pounded down the hallway. The sound of doors being kicked in reverberated through the walls. Lucas pulled his phone from his pocket, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. When he looked back at her, there was something almost apologetic in his expression. Almost. You're going to stay in this room until my men secure the building. When it's safe, we'll move you somewhere more comfortable. Comfortable? Jade's voice cracked. You mean another place I can't leave? I mean somewhere you won't get killed. His tone didn't change, didn't rise. The people hunting me don't take prisoners, Miss Jordan. They don't ask questions. If they find you, if they think for even a second that you're connected to me, you won't live long enough to explain the mistake. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream that this was insane, that she had rights, that he couldn't just keep her here like some kind of hostage. But the look in his eyes stopped her. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. He was certain, and that certainty was more frightening than any threat could have been. How long? She whispered. As long as it takes. He moved to the door, said something low to the guard, then turned back to her one last time. You're not the man you need to be afraid of tonight, Jade, but if you try to leave before I say you can, then I can't protect you from the ones you should fear. The door opened, closed. The lock turned with a soft final click, and Jade sat alone in the dark, Christmas lights twinkling in the distance beyond the window, understanding with terrible clarity that the wrong door hadn't just changed her night. It had changed everything. Jade didn't know how long she sat there. Time felt strange, stretched thin like taffy. Every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Footsteps, voices, the elevator chiming somewhere down the corridor. Normal sounds that now felt like threats. She'd tried the door once, just once, her hand on the handle, hope flickering stupidly in her chest. Locked. Of course it was locked. She'd gone to the window next, pressing her forehead against the cold glass, looking down at the street 12 stories below. The city glittered, oblivious. Cars moving, people walking. Somewhere down there, someone was having a normal Christmas night. She wasn't. The explosion of sound came without warning. The door to the suite burst open. Not unlocked, shattered, wood splintering as men in tactical gear flooded inside like water through a broken dam. Jade screamed. She didn't mean to, didn't plan it. The sound just tore out of her as her body threw itself backward, away from the door, away from the guns that swung toward her with mechanical precision. Down! Get down! She didn't know if they were shouting at her or each other. Didn't matter. Her legs gave out and she hit the floor hard, palms scraping against carpet. Then Lucas was there. She didn't see him come in, didn't hear him. One second she was alone with armed strangers, and the next he was between her and them, his body a wall, his gun raised. Stand down. His voice was steel, absolute. She's not the target. The man who spoke wore a mask, but his accent was heavy. Russian, maybe, Eastern European. Witnesses don't walk away. You expect us to believe that? The air in the room changed, tightened. Jade could feel it pressing against her lungs. Lucas didn't move. I expect you to leave before this gets ugly. It's already ugly. The masked man took a step closer. His gun stayed trained on Lucas. Jade was terrified. She had no idea what to do. Jade's heart pounded against her ribs as he stood still like a statue, inches from the barrel of the gun. Everything happened at once. The masked man's finger moved toward the trigger. Lucas fired first. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, a crack that split the air and made Jade's ears ring. The man went down. His companions opened fire.
Lucas grabbed Jade's arm and hauled her behind the upturned table, his body covering her as bullets chewed through the wall above them. Plaster rained down, glass shattered, the Christmas lights beyond the window exploded in a shower of sparks. Jade couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The weight of Lucas pressed against her back, solid and unyielding, one arm locked around her waist as his other hand returned fire with surgical precision. She'd never been this close to death before, never felt it breathing down her neck, never smelled gunpowder and blood, never heard the wet sound of a body hitting the floor just feet away. This was real. This wasn't a movie, wasn't a nightmare she could wake from. This was her life now. "Stay down," Lucas growled against her ear. His voice was rougher now, strained. "Don't move. Don't look." But she did look. She saw one of Lucas's men take a bullet to the shoulder and keep fighting, saw another go down and not get up, saw Lucas move with a fluid, deadly grace that came from years of surviving moments exactly like this. You saw what he was. Not a man in a suit, not some distant figure of power. A killer. Efficient. Relentless. Terrifying. The gunfire stopped. The silence that followed felt fragile, like it might shatter at any moment. Lucas stayed frozen over her for a long breath. Then, slowly, carefully, he pulled back. "Clear?" Someone called from the hallway. Lucas stood, offered her his hand. Jade stared at it, at the blood on his cuff, at the steadiness of his fingers despite the chaos that had just torn through the room. She took it. He pulled her to her feet. His grip was firm, grounding. When she swayed, he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up. He studied her face for a moment, then turned to one of his men, a tall, dark-skinned man
with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. "How bad?" "3 dead. 2 ours, 1 theirs. They'll send more." "How many know she's here?" "Hard to say. Could be all of them." Lucas's jaw tightened. He looked back at Jade, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold math of survival. She was a problem now. Not just a mistake, not just collateral damage, a liability. "We're moving her," Lucas said. "Get the car." "Moving me where?" Jade found her voice. It came out hoarse, shaking. "You said I'd be safe if I stayed." That was before they breached. "The building." He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Do you understand what just happened? They came for you. Not just me, you. Because you were here. Because they think you matter to me. But I don't." "They don't know that." His hands tightened fractionally. "And now that they've seen you, now that they know you exist, they won't stop. Not until they've used you or killed you. Probably both." The words hit her like a slap. "You need to move. Now." He didn't wait for her to argue. His hand closed around her wrist and he pulled her toward the door, stepping over debris and bodies with the ease of someone who'd done this before, many times before. Jade's legs moved mechanically. She was aware of being guided through the hallway, past walls pocked with bullet holes, past frightened hotel staff huddled in doorways, past blood smeared across expensive wallpaper. She was aware of the elevator ride down, not to the lobby, but to some service exit she hadn't known existed. She was aware of the cold night air hitting her face as they emerged into an underground garage, armed men flanking them on all sides. And she was aware of Lucas's hand on her back, pushing her gently but firmly into the back of a black SUV. The door closed. The engine started. Lucas slid in beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the gunpowder and expensive cologne that clung to his clothes. Their eyes met in the darkness. Jade saw her reflection in his, small, terrified, out of place. And she saw something else, something that made her breath catch. He was looking at her like she mattered, like she was more than a mistake, more than a complication. Like somewhere in the chaos of the last hour, she'd become something he couldn't afford to lose. The thought should have comforted her. Instead, it terrified her more than the bullets had. Because she understood now, truly understood. She wasn't a bystander anymore. She wasn't innocent. She was involved. and there was no walking away from Lucas Gray's world once you'd stepped inside. The car pulled out of the garage and into the snowy night, leaving the Belmont Hotel and any chance of a normal life far behind. The estate appeared through the snow like something from a dream or a nightmare. Jade couldn't decide which. They'd been driving for over an hour, the city lights fading behind them until there was nothing but darkness and falling snow. She'd stopped asking where they were going after the third time Lucas didn't answer. Now she just watched the trees blur past, thick and silent, like the world itself was holding its breath. When the gates finally appeared, iron, 12 feet high, flanked by stone pillars, she felt her stomach drop. This wasn't a house, it was a fortress. The SUV crunched up a long gravel drive, past what looked like guard posts hidden in the trees, past security cameras mounted on every corner. The building itself was sprawling, all stone and dark windows, lit from within by soft golden light that should have felt welcoming, but somehow didn't. The car stopped. Lucas got out first, then held the door open for her. "Come on." Jade climbed out on shaking legs. The cold hit her immediately, sharper here than in the city. Cleaner, the kind of cold that cleared your head whether you wanted it to or not. Snow fell in fat, lazy flakes, already coating the ground in white. Silence pressed from all sides. No traffic, no voices, no sirens, just snow and stone and the crunch of footsteps on gravel. "This way." Lucas's hand found the small of her back, guiding her toward the entrance. Inside, the house was warm, too warm after the cold outside. Jade's skin prickled as feeling returned to her fingers and face. The entry hall was massive. Vaulted ceilings, dark wood, a chandelier that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Everything spoke of old money and older violence. A woman in her 50s appeared from a side hallway, gray hair pulled back, dressed in simple black. "Mr. Gray, your room is prepared." "Thank you, Elena. This is Jade. She'll be staying in the East Wing." Elena's eyes flicked to Jade, assessing. If she had questions, she didn't ask them. "I'll have fresh towels sent up." She disappeared as she had come. "This way." Lucas started up the stairs. Jade followed because she didn't know what else to do. The East Wing was beautiful in that cold, impersonal way expensive things often were. Hardwood floors, cream-colored walls. Jade's room was at the end of the hall, spacious with a 4-poster bed, an ensuite bathroom, and windows that looked out over snow-covered grounds. It was also, unmistakably, a cage. Lucas stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her take it in. "You'll stay on this floor. The library is 2 doors down if you want to read. There's a sitting room at the end of the hall. Meals will be brought to you." Jade turned slowly. "Brought to me?" "Yes. So I'm not allowed to leave this floor?" "You're not allowed to wander unsupervised." His tone was neutral, matter of fact. "The grounds are monitored. My men are stationed throughout the house. If you need anything, press the button by the bed. Someone will come." "A button?" She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "Like I'm in a hotel." "You're safer here than anywhere else right now." "I'm a prisoner here." "You're alive here." His eyes held hers. "That's what matters." Jade crossed her arms, nails digging into her palms. The fear from earlier was hardening into something else now. Anger, maybe, or defiance. "You don't get to decide what matters to me." "No?" He tilted his head slightly. "Then what would you have me do, Jade? Send you home? Let you walk back into the city where Volkov's men are looking for you? Where every syndicate with a grudge against me now has your face? You could let me call someone, my boss, my landlord, someone who'll wonder where I am." "And tell them what?" His voice sharpened. "That you're hiding from Russian mobsters because you walked into the wrong room? That you witnessed a shootout and now you're a target?" He took a step closer. "The moment you contact anyone from your old life, you put them in danger. Is that what you want?" The words hit like a fist. Jade's arms tightened around herself. "No." "Then you stay here, you follow the rules, and you stay alive." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There are clothes in the wardrobe. Everything you need." "Everything except freedom." He looked back at her, and for a moment, something flickered across his face, almost like regret. "Freedom is overrated when you're dead." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Jade stood alone in her beautiful prison, listening to the silence press against the windows. 3 days passed like ghosts. Jade ate meals she didn't taste, read books she couldn't remember, stared out windows at snow that never seemed to stop falling. The isolation was worse than the fear. At least fear was something, a presence, a weight. This was nothing, just white walls and silence and the slow, creeping sense that she was disappearing. On the 4th night, she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. She just walked out of her room and down the stairs, past the sitting room, past the library, all the way to the main floor where she knew she shouldn't be. She found Lucas in what looked like a study. He sat behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, a glass of whiskey catching lamplight. He looked up when she entered, surprise flickering across his features before settling back into that controlled mask. "You're not supposed to be down here." "I don't care." Jade crossed her arms. "You want me to stay in that room and disappear? Fine, but I won't do it quietly. I won't make it easy for you to forget I exist." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I haven't forgotten." "Haven't you?" She moved closer, anger giving her courage she didn't know she had. "You put me in that wing like I'm a piece of furniture you're storing. You set your rules and locked your doors and expected me to just, what, fade away?" "I expected you to stay safe." "Safe and invisible are not the same thing." Her voice cracked. "I'm not a ghost, Lucas. I'm a person. And if you're going to keep me here, if you're going to take away my life and my choices, then at least have the decency to see me." Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, he stood. "I see you." His voice was quieter now, rougher. "That's the problem." Jade blinked. "What?" He moved around the desk, closing the distance until he was close enough that she could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the weight he carried. "You think I don't know you're there, that I don't feel every moment you're under this roof?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "You walked into my life by accident, Jade, but keeping you alive," his jaw tightened, "that's a choice I have to make every day, and it gets harder when you look at me the way you're looking at me right now." "How am I looking at you?" "Like I'm still human." The words hung between them, raw and unguarded. Jade swallowed. "Aren't you?" For a long moment, Lucas just stared at her. Then he reached up, loosening his tie with hands that weren't quite steady. "I was 17 when I killed my first man. He was my father's enforcer, loyal for 20 years. But loyalty doesn't stop a bullet when someone offers enough money." Jade's breath caught. "I've built an empire on fear and blood. I've made choices that cost lives, good lives, innocent lives, because survival required it." His eyes held hers. "I'm not a good man, Jade. I stopped being a good man a long time ago." "Then why am I still alive?" The question seemed to hit him physically. He turned away, moved to the window, pressing one hand against the glass. "I don't know," he said, finally, quietly. "I should have let you go that first night, should have taken the risk, but I didn't." "Why?" "Because," he stopped, started again, "because when you looked at me in that hotel room, terrified and shaking, I saw something I'd forgotten existed." "What?" He turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her chest tighten. "Someone who could still be saved." The words settled between them like snow. Jade took a step closer. "I think you're talking about yourself." "Maybe." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Or maybe I'm just selfish enough to want to keep the one good thing that's walked into my life in years." Her heart was pounding now. "Lucas!" "You should go back upstairs." But he didn't move, didn't look away. "Before we do something we'll both regret." Jade stood frozen, caught between fear and something far more dangerous. She saw it then, saw what she'd been missing. The careful distance, the rules, the locked doors. He wasn't just protecting her from his enemies, he was protecting her from himself. and he was terrified he'd fail. "Good night, Lucas," she whispered. She turned and walked back to her cage, her heart racing, understanding settling over her like the snow outside. He wasn't afraid of losing her to violence. He was afraid of losing her to himself, and somehow that was infinitely more dangerous. The days began to blur together, not in the way they had at first, empty and endless. Now they had shape, a rhythm, a kind of terrible normalcy that Jade didn't know how to name. Lucas stopped keeping her confined to the East Wing. She didn't ask why, didn't push, but she noticed the change, the way his men no longer tracked her movements through the house, the way Alina started leaving breakfast in the dining room instead of bringing it upstairs, the way Lucas himself appeared more often, like gravity had shifted and they kept ending up in the same orbit. It started small. She found him in the library one afternoon, standing by the window with a book in his hands. He looked up when she entered, something almost shy crossing his features before he could hide it. "Tolstoy," he said, holding up the book. "Do you read Russian literature?" "I read Russian literature in translation, which probably makes me a fraud." The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "It makes you honest." She pulled a book at random, not lifting at the title. "You speak Russian?" "Among other things. My mother was from Moscow. She taught me before she died." Jade glanced at him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." But something in his voice said it wasn't, that some wounds didn't close no matter how many years passed. They stood in comfortable silence, snow falling beyond the windows, until Lucas cleared his throat. "Elena's making dinner tonight. You should eat downstairs. With me." It wasn't quite an invitation, wasn't quite a command. Jade met his eyes. "Is that allowed?" "I'm making it allowed." That night, they sat across from each other at a table that could have seated 20, and Jade learned that Lucas Gray knew how to be almost human. He asked about her work, her life before, small things that shouldn't have mattered, but somehow did. And when she made a joke about her terrible boss, something unexpected happened. Lucas laughed. Not much, just a low sound in his throat, brief as lightning, but real. Jade stared at him, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "What?" he asked. Nothing. She shook her head. "I didn't know you could do that." "Do what?" "Laugh." Something complicated moved across his face. "I'm out of practice." The meals became routine after that. Dinner most nights, sometimes lunch. Conversations that started careful and grew less so with each passing day. Jade learned things she didn't expect. That Lucas had wanted to be an architect before his father died and left him an empire built on violence. That he played piano, badly, he claimed, though she heard him once through a closed door and it didn't sound bad at all. That he carried the weight of every life he'd taken like stones in his pockets, and some mornings she could see it in the way he moved, like gravity pulled harder on him than everyone else. One night, she found him on the terrace, snow collecting on his shoulders, staring out to nothing. "You'll freeze out here," she said, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. Couldn't sleep. He didn't turn. "Go back inside, Jade." She didn't. Instead, she moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him despite the cold. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, quietly. "Whether keeping you here makes me your protector or your jailer." The honesty surprised her. "What do you think?" "I think the line gets thinner every day." He finally looked at her, and there was something raw in his expression, something that made her breath catch. "I think I stopped caring about the difference somewhere along the way." Jade should have been afraid, should have run. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold. She folded them in both of hers, trying to share warmth, and watched something crack in his carefully controlled expression. "You're not my jailer, Lucas. Not anymore." "Then what am I?" She didn't have an answer, didn't know if she wanted one. The moment stretched between them, fragile and dangerous, until Lucas pulled away gently and stepped back. "You should go inside," he said, softer this time, "before I forget why that's a good idea." The assassin came on the 11th night. Jade woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind, the kind that made the hairs on her neck stand up before her conscious mind understood why. She sat up slowly, heart already racing. The door to her room was open. She never left it open. Moonlight spilled across the floor, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Jade reached for her phone on the nightstand, then froze. A figure stood in the doorway. Not Lucas, not one of his men. Someone else. Someone wrong. "Scream and you die faster," the man said in accented English. He moved into the room, gun raised, silencer attached. "Mr. Volkov sends his regards." Jade's throat closed. She couldn't scream if she wanted to. The man's finger moved to the trigger. The shot never came. Lucas appeared behind him like something conjured from darkness itself. One hand clamped over the assassin's mouth. The other, holding a knife, moved with brutal efficiency. He went down without a sound. But there were more. Jade heard them coming. Footsteps, shouts, the sudden eruption of gunfire somewhere downstairs. Lucas grabbed her wrist, hauling her out of bed. "Stay behind me. Don't stop moving." They ran. Down the hallway, past bodies Jade tried not to look at, past bullet holes and blood and evidence of violence she couldn't process. Another assassin appeared at the top of the stairs. Lucas pushed Jade behind him and fired twice. The man fell. They kept moving. Into a side room. Lucas slammed the door, locked it, dragged a dresser across the entrance with one hand while keeping his gun raised with the other. "Are you hurt?" He turned to her, hands moving over her shoulders, her arms, checking for injuries with an urgency that bordered on frantic. "I'm fine, Jade's voice broke. "Lucas, there are so many of them." "I know." His jaw was tight. "I know." More gunfire, closer now. The door shuddered under the impact of something heavy. Someone was trying to break through. Lucas moved her to the far corner, placing himself between her and the door. "Whatever happens, you stay down. You understand me?" "Lucas!" "You stay down." His eyes bored in hers. "Promise me?" "I promise." The door splintered. Two men forced their way inside. What happened next would stay with Jade for the rest of her life. Lucas moved like death itself. Fast, precise, absolutely merciless. He killed the first man before he could raise his weapon. The second got a shot off, it went wide, shattering a window, before Lucas closed the distance and ended him with his bare hands. It was over in seconds. But those seconds changed everything. Lucas stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood, not his, splattered across his shirt and hands and face. He looked like something primal, something that had been carved from violence and fury and absolute, unwavering purpose. He looked like exactly what he was. And when he turned to Jade, when their eyes met across the room, she saw it all laid bare. The monster, the man, the thing that would burn the world to keep her safe. "Jade!" His voice cracked on her name. She should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold. She folded them in both of hers, trying to share warmth, and watched something crack in his carefully controlled expression. "You're not my jailer, Lucas. Not anymore." "Then what am I?" She didn't have an answer, didn't know if she wanted one. The moment stretched between them, fragile and dangerous, until Lucas pulled away gently and stepped back. "You should go inside," he said, softer this time, "before I forget why that's a good idea." The assassin came on the 11th night. Jade woke to silence, not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind, the kind that made the hairs on her neck stand up before her conscious mind understood why. She sat up slowly, heart already racing. The door to her room was open. She never left it open. Moonlight spilled across the floor, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Jade reached for her phone on the nightstand, then froze. A figure stood in the doorway. Not Lucas, not one of his men. Someone else. Someone wrong. "Scream and you die faster," the man said in accented English. He moved into the room, gun raised, silencer attached. "Mr. Volkov sends his regards." Jade's throat closed. She couldn't scream if she wanted to. The man's finger moved to the trigger. The shot never came. Lucas appeared behind him like something conjured from darkness itself. One hand clamped over the assassin's mouth. The other, holding a knife, moved with brutal efficiency. He went down without a sound. But there were more. Jade heard them coming. Footsteps, shouts, the sudden eruption of gunfire somewhere downstairs. Lucas grabbed her wrist, hauling her out of bed. "Stay behind me. Don't stop moving." They ran. Down the hallway, past bodies Jade tried not to look at, past bullet holes and blood and evidence of violence she couldn't process. Another assassin appeared at the top of the stairs. Lucas pushed Jade behind him and fired twice. The man fell. They kept moving. Into a side room. Lucas slammed the door, locked it, dragged a dresser across the entrance with one hand while keeping his gun raised with the other. "Are you hurt?" He turned to her, hands moving over her shoulders, her arms, checking for injuries with an urgency that bordered on frantic. "I'm fine, Jade's voice broke. "Lucas, there are so many of them." "I know." His jaw was tight. "I know." More gunfire, closer now. The door shuddered under the impact of something heavy. Someone was trying to break through. Lucas moved her to the far corner, placing himself between her and the door. "Whatever happens, you stay down. You understand me?" "Lucas!" "You stay down." His eyes bored in hers. "Promise me?" "I promise." The door splintered. Two men forced their way inside. What happened next would stay with Jade for the rest of her life. Lucas moved like death itself, fast, precise, absolutely merciless. He killed the first man before he could raise his weapon. The second got a shot off, it went wide, shattering a window, before Lucas closed the distance and ended him with his bare hands. It was over in seconds. But those seconds changed everything. Lucas stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood, not his, splattered across his shirt and hands and face. He looked like something primal, something that had been carved from violence, vengeance and fury and absolute, unwavering purpose. He looked like exactly what he was. And when he turned to Jade, when their eyes met across the room, she saw it all laid bare. The monster, the man, the thing that would burn the world to keep her safe. "Jade." His voice cracked on her name. She should have been terrified, should have recoiled. Instead, she crossed the room in 3 steps and threw her arms around him, holding on like he was the only solid thing left in a world that had shattered around them. His body went rigid with shock. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, crushing her against his chest like he was afraid she might disappear. "You're shaking," he whispered against her hair. "So are you." They stood there in the wreckage, blood on his hands, her name on his lips, and Jade understood with terrible clarity that whatever had been building between them had just crossed a line they could never uncross. She'd seen him kill, seen the cost of his protection, and she was still here, still holding him, still choosing this, choosing him. "I've got you," Lucas breathed. "I've got you." But Jade wasn't sure anymore who was holding who, or if either of them could let go, even if they wanted to. Dawn came gray and cold. Jade stood at the window of a different room, her old one was a crime scene now, watching Lucas's men move across the grounds below, cleaning up, disposing of evidence, making the night's violence disappear like it had never happened. But it had happened. She could still feel it, the weight of Lucas's arms around her, the smell of gunpowder and blood, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. "You should eat something." Lucas's voice was rough, exhausted. "I'm not hungry." Silence. then footsteps crossing the room. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see his reflection in the glass. He'd showered, changed clothes, but he still looked like a man who'd spent the night fighting for his life. For her life. "I've doubled security," he said. "It won't happen again." "You don't know that." "No." The admission came quiet, honest. "I don't." Jade finally turned to face him. In the pale morning light, he looked different, older, more human. The careful control he usually wore like armor had cracks in it now. "How many people have died because of me?" she asked. Lucas's jaw tightened. "That's not—" "How many, Lucas?" He held her gaze. 7 of theirs, 3 of mine. 10 people, 10 lives ended because she opened the wrong door. "And you?" she pressed. "How many have you killed?" "Jade." "Don't!" She took a step toward him. "Don't deflect. Don't protect me from the truth. I watched you kill 2 men with your bare hands last night. I think I deserve honesty." Something shifted in his expression, something that looked almost like respect. "More than I can count," he said finally. "I stopped keeping track years ago." The words should have horrified her, should have sent her running. They didn't. "Why?" she asked. "Why what?" "Why did you stop counting?" Lucas looked away, toward the window, toward the snow-covered grounds where bodies had been dragged away hours ago. "Because if I counted, if I remembered every face, every name," he exhaled slowly, "I wouldn't be able to do what needs to be done." "And what needs to be done?" "Survive." He turned back to her. "My world doesn't forgive weakness, Jade. It doesn't give second chances. You hesitate, you show mercy to the wrong person, and you're dead. Everyone you depend on is dead." "So you became something that doesn't hesitate." "Yes. Something that doesn't feel." "I tried to." His eyes held hers. "For a long time, I tried to." "But?" "But then you walked through that door." His voice dropped. "And I haven't stopped feeling since." Jade's breath caught. Lucas moved closer, slowly, like he was approaching something wild that might bolt. "I should send you away. Put you on a plane to somewhere my enemies can't find you, give you money, a new identity, a chance to disappear." "Why don't you?" "Because I'm selfish." The confession came raw, unguarded. "Because every time I think about letting you go, something in me refuses, and I don't know if it's because I'm protecting you or because I can't stand the thought of you out there in the world where I can't see you, can't know you're safe, can't—" He stopped himself, swallowed hard. "Can't what?" "Can't have you." The words fell between them like stones. "That's the truth, Jade. I keep you here because sending you away would destroy me, and keeping you here might destroy you, and I don't know which is worse." The honesty of it stole her breath. "My world destroys everything it touches. Everyone I've ever cared about has either betrayed me or died, usually both, and I swore I'd never let anyone close enough to do either again." "But?" "But you already are." He took another step closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, his fingers skating along her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was, everything he'd done. "If you stay, there's no going back, no normal life, no safety, just this, just me, and everything that comes with me." "I know." "I will destroy you," he said, and it sounded like a promise, like a threat, like a curse. "Everyone in my world gets destroyed eventually." "Then destroy me." The words left her lips before she could stop them. "Because whatever this is between us, it's already too late to walk away." Something broke in his expression, the last wall crumbling. "I can't let you go," he confessed, his voice ragged. "I've tried. God knows I've tried. But every time I think about it, every time I imagine you out there without me," his fingers tightened against her jaw, "I would burn the world before I let them have you." "That's not protection anymore, Lucas." "I know." His forehead came to rest against hers, their breath mingling in the small space between them. "That's possession. That's obsession. That's every dark thing I swore I'd never let myself feel again." And if I want it anyway? Her hands found their way to his chest, fisting in his shirt. What if I'm just as lost in this as you are? His control shattered. He kissed her like drowning, like she was air and he'd been underwater for years. His hands cradled her face with a reverence that contradicted the desperate press of his mouth against hers. It was hunger and restraint, violence and tenderness. Everything he was condensed into a single moment that felt like falling and flying at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers again. "We can't," he whispered, but his hands said otherwise, still holding her like she might disappear. "We already are," Jade breathed back. And she was right. The line between protection and possession had blurred so completely neither of them could say where one ended and the other began. She wasn't his hostage anymore, but she wasn't free either. She was something more dangerous than both. She was his, and God help them both, she wanted to be. The call came 3 days later. Jade was in the library, curled into the window seat with a book she wasn't really reading, when she heard Lucas's voice echo from his study. Not the controlled tone he usually maintained, something sharper, colder. "Say that again?" She set the book aside and moved toward the door, instinct telling her something was wrong. Lucas appeared in the hallway before she reached him. His face was a mask of barely contained fury. "What happened?" Jade asked. "Dmitri." The name came out like poison. "One of my oldest lieutenants. He's been feeding information to Volkov for months." Jade's stomach dropped. "Does he know about this place?" Lucas's silence was answer enough. "We need to move. Now." He gripped her arm, already pulling her toward the stairs. "Elena's packing your things. We have maybe 20 minutes before—" The explosion cut him off. The West Wing erupted in fire and smoke, the blast wave shattering windows throughout the house. Jade's ears rang. Lucas pulled her against him, shielding her from falling glass. "They're already here," he growled, then louder into his radio. "All units, defensive positions. This is not a drill." Gunfire erupted outside, inside, everywhere at once. This wasn't like the night in her room. This was coordinated, professional, overwhelming. Lucas dragged her down the hallway, away from the flames. "Stay close to." A figure emerged from the smoke ahead of them. Not one of Lucas's men. Dmitri. He was older than Lucas, gray, threaded dark hair, wearing an expression that was almost apologetic. Almost. "I'm sorry it came to this," Dmitri said, gun raised. Not pointed at Lucas, pointed at Jade. Lucas went utterly still. "Don't." "You know how this works, Lucas. You taught me. No loose ends, no vulnerabilities." Dimitri's eyes flicked to Jade. "She's a vulnerability. She's none of your concern. She's every syndicate's concern. The great Lucas Gray brought to his knees by a woman who stumbled into the wrong room." Dmitri shook his head. "Volkov's offering triple the usual rate for her. Alive, preferably, but dead works too. You'll have to go through me first. I was counting on it." Dmitri gestured, and 4 armed men materialized from the smoke behind him. Too many, even for Lucas. "Run," Lucas said quietly to Jade. "When I move, you run." "I'm not leaving you." "Run." Lucas moved like lightning, his gun clearing his holster as in he lunged at Dmitri. The hallway erupted in chaos. Jade ran. She didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to stay, to help, to do something. But Lucas had given her an order, and she knew why. Because her being there made him vulnerable, made him choose between fighting and protecting her. She made it to the main staircase before they caught her. Strong hands grabbed her from behind, clamping over her mouth before she could scream. She fought, kicking and clawing, but there were too many of them. "Secure the girl," someone barked in Russian-accented English. Move, move. They hauled her toward the shattered east entrance, where SUVs idled, engines running. Jade caught a glimpse of Lucas's men pinned down by heavy fire, outnumbered and outgunned. This was it. They were taking her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Then she heard it. Lucas's voice, raw and primal, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Jade!" She twisted in her captor's grip, saw him emerge from the smoke. Blood streaked his face, his gun was gone, but his eyes were the eyes of something that had forgotten how to be human. He tore through his enemies like they were paper. Jade watched in horror and awe as Lucas became everything he'd warned her about. Every restraint, every carefully maintained control shattered. He was magnificent. He was terrifying. He was too late. They threw her into the SUV and the door slammed shut. The vehicle lurched forward, speeding down the drive toward the gates. Through the rear window, Jade watched Lucas stumble to his knees in the snow, one hand reaching toward her, his mouth forming her name. Then the estate disappeared around a curve in the road. The man in the front seat turned to look at her. Not Dmitri, someone else. Younger, with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "Miss Jordan," he said pleasantly, "Mr. Volkov has been very eager to meet you." Jade said nothing, just pressed herself against the far door, mind racing, looking for escape routes, finding none. "You've caused quite a lot of trouble, you know. All this bloodshed, all these resources spent." Tss, softly. "And for what? A woman who doesn't even belong in our world." "Then let me go." "Oh, we will, eventually." The smile widened. "Once Mr. Gray delivers what Mr. Volkov wants, his territory, his assets, his complete and unconditional surrender." "He'll never do that." "Won't he?" The man leaned back, confident. "We'll see. A man in love does remarkably stupid things." Jade's heart hammered. "He doesn't love me." "No." The man pulled out his phone, typed something, then turned the screen toward her. It was a message from Lucas to Dmitri, sent weeks ago. "She's not part of this. Whatever happens, she stays out of it." Another message, more recent: "I'll give you whatever you want. Just keep her safe." And finally, from just hours ago, before Dmitri's betrayal became known: "I'd burn everything I've built before I let them touch her." The man pocketed his phone. "Still think he doesn't love you?" Jade couldn't breathe. "He'll come for you," the man continued. "He'll walk into whatever trap we set because he won't be able to stop himself. And when he does, Mr. Volkov will finally have what he's wanted for years: Lucas Gray destroyed." "You don't know him." "Don't I?" The man's smile turned predatory. "I know that 3 hours ago, before we even took you, he'd already put the word out. Every syndicate in the city is going to war tonight. Not because of business, not because of territory, because of you." He leaned forward, itty eyes glittering. "The city is burning, Miss Jordan, and Lucas Gray is the one who lit the match."
Lucas stood in the ruins of his study, phone pressed to his ear, blood drying on his knuckles. "I don't care what it costs," he said, voice devoid of emotion, devoid of everything except cold, absolute purpose. "Find her, and bring me everyone who touched her." "Boss," the voice on the other end hesitated, "Volkov's barricaded in the financial district. He's got 50 men, maybe more. We go in there, we start a war." "Then we start a war." Lucas's grip tightened on the phone. "I want every asset we have mobilized. I want every favor called in. I want the Italians, the Irish, everyone who owes me. By midnight, I want an army." "What about our territories, our other operations? If we pull everyone—" "I don't care." The words came out flat, final. "Let them burn. Let it all burn. I want her back." Silence. Then, "Understood."
Lucas ended the call and looked out over the grounds where bodies were still being collected. His empire, built over decades, maintained through careful strategy and calculated violence. All of it meaningless now. Dmitri had been right about one thing. Jade was a vulnerability. But she was his vulnerability, his choice, his, and he would tear the world apart to get her back. The phone rang. Unknown number. Lucas answered. "Mr. Gray," Volkov's voice, thick with Russian accent and satisfaction. "I believe I have something of yours." "Where is she?" "Safe. For now. But that depends entirely on you." "What do you want?" "Everything," Volkov laughed. "Your territory, your businesses, your accounts, complete surrender by dawn, and maybe, I let her live." Lucas closed his eyes, saw Jade's face, her smile, the way she'd looked at him this morning like he was something worth saving. "No," he said quietly. Volkov's laughter stopped. "No? You want a war, Victor? I'll give you one. But understand this." Lucas's voice dropped to something barely human. "I'm not negotiating. I'm not surrendering. I'm coming for her, and everyone between us dies. I don't care how many, I don't care who they are. You wanted to make her my weakness?" He opened his eyes, stared at his reflection in the window, blood-streaked, hollow-eyed, something ancient and terrible looking back. "You just gave me something worth destroying everything for." He ended the call, looked at the man standing in the doorway, his most trusted captain, scarred and loyal. "Gather everyone," Lucas said. "Tonight we remind this city why they fear my name." The captain nodded and disappeared. Lucas stood alone in the darkness, preparing for war. This time, with nothing left to lose. The city had never looked more beautiful or more deadly. Snow fell in thick curtains, muffling sound, turning the streets into something ethereal. Christmas lights still blazed from windows and storefronts, oblivious to the violence brewing in the shadows. Somewhere carols played, families gathered, children slept dreaming of presents under trees. Lucas Gray drove through it all like a bullet through flesh, fast, direct, leaving destruction in his wake. The convoy behind him was 20 cars strong, every soldier he had, every favor called in. The Italians sent men, even the Irish who hated him had agreed to a temporary alliance because they hated Volkov more. Tonight, the city would remember why speaking Lucas Gray's name had once been enough to end wars. The financial district rose ahead, glass towers reflecting Christmas lights like frozen fire. Volkov's building sat in the center, 30 floors of luxury condos, the top 5 floors owned entirely by the Russian syndicate, a fortress in plain sight. Lucas pulled up 3 blocks away. His men fanned out, disappearing into alleys and side streets, moving into position. "Snipers in place," a voice crackled through his earpiece. "Charges set on the lower levels," another confirmed. "Lucas." It was Marcus, his most trusted captain, voice tight with concern. "They'll have her on the top floor. That's a lot of men between you and her." "I know." He checked his weapons, 2 guns, extra clips, a knife. Tools of his trade. "I'll go through all of them if I have to." "You'll die trying." "Then I'd die." He met his eyes. "But I'm not leaving her there." Marcus nodded slowly. "We're with you. All the way." Lucas clasped his shoulder once, then he stepped out into the snow. The approach was silent, efficient. His men disabled security, took out sentries, cleared the lower floors with the precision of surgeons. But Lucas knew it was a facade. Volkov wanted him to come, was counting on it. This was a trap. He walked into it anyway. The lights cut out on the 15th floor. Then the shooting started. Jade heard the explosions before she heard the gunfire. She'd been locked in a penthouse suite for hours, hands zip-tied, 2 guards rotating watch. The room was obscenely luxurious, all marble and leather and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a gilded cage. When the building shook, both guards reached for their radios. "Report, what was that?" Static, then screaming, then gunfire. "It's Gray, and he's actually—" The radio cut to static. Jade's heart hammered. Lucas was here, coming for her, walking into exactly the trap Volkov had set. The door burst open. Not Lucas, Volkov himself. He was older than she'd expected, mid-50s, with silver hair and the kind of face that probably was handsome once, but now was carved with cruelty. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd never lost. "Miss Jordan," he smiled, "your champion has arrived. Let me go." "Soon." He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "First, I want you to watch. Watch Lucas Gray destroy himself for you. Watch him burn through my men like they're nothing, climbing higher and higher, getting weaker and weaker, and when he finally reaches this floor, when he's bleeding and desperate and running on nothing but will."
Volkov turned, eyes glittering. "I'll put a bullet in his head, while you watch." Jade lunged. She didn't think, didn't plan, just threw herself at him, hands still bound, but fury giving her strength. She was done being helpless, done being leverage, done being the reason Lucas had to sacrifice everything. Volkov caught her easily, backhanding her hard enough to send her sprawling. "Spirited," he observed. "I see why he likes you." Jade tasted blood, pushed herself up anyway. The building shook again, closer this time. Volkov's smile faded. He barked orders in Russian, and his guards dragged Jade to her feet, weapons raised toward the door. Waiting. Lucas left bodies in his wake. He'd stopped counting floors ago, stopped feeling the pain from the bullet graze on his shoulder, the knife wound on his ribs, stopped thinking about anything except getting to her. Men came at him from all sides. He cut through them like smoke. This was what he was built for, what he'd become. Pure violence, purpose given form. For her. Always for her. 28th floor, 29th. Marcus's voice in his ear. "Boss, you're bleeding." "I'm fine." "You're not." "I'm getting her out." Lucas kicked open the stairwell door. "Clear the floors below. When I come back down, I want a straight line to the exit." "And if you don't come back down?" Lucas didn't answer, just moved forward. The 30th floor was quiet, too quiet. The penthouse doors stood open, inviting. Lucas raised his gun and walked through. Volkov stood in the center of the room, calm as death. 4 guards flanked him. And Jade. Jade was on her knees, hands bound, blood on her lip, but her eyes blazing with defiance that made Lucas's chest ache. "Let her go," Lucas said quietly. "Or what?" Volkov smiled. "You'll kill me? We both know you can't reach me before my men reach her. Try me." "I think not." Volkov gestured, and one guard pressed a gun to Jade's temple. "Drop your weapon, Lucas, or watch her die." Time seemed to stop. Lucas looked at Jade, saw her shake her head slightly, saw her mouth the words, "Don't do it." But he was already moving. The gun clattered to the floor. "There," Volkov's smile widened. "See how easy?" Jade moved. She drove her elbow back into the guard's groin, throwing him off balance. It gave Lucas the half second he needed. He drew the backup piece from his ankle holster and fired. The room erupted. Lucas moved through the chaos like a storm, each shot precise, each movement calculated, even as his body screamed in protest. 1 guard down, 2, 3. Volkov pulled his own weapon, swinging toward Jade. Lucas threw himself between them. The bullet hit him high on the chest. The impact spun him, sent him crashing into Jade, bearing her to the ground as his vision went white. But his finger was still on the trigger. He fired. Once. Twice. Volkov went down. Silence. Lucas couldn't breathe, couldn't see properly, could only feel Jade's hands on his face, her voice saying his name over and over. "Lucas, Lucas, stay with me, please." "Are you hurt?" The words came out thick,
Wrong. I'm fine. There's so much blood. Good. He tried to smile. Failed. That's good. We have to move. Can you stand? He couldn't, but he did anyway because she needed him to. They staggered toward the door, Jade bearing too much of his weight, Lucas leaving bloody footprints in the snow-white carpet. His men found them on the 28th floor. Marcus took one look at Lucas and barked orders into his radio. I need medical, now, and clear the goddamn exits. Get her out first, Lucas managed. I'm not leaving you, Jade said fiercely. Jade. No, not after everything, not after this. We leave together or we don't leave at all. Lucas looked at her, face smudged with dirt and blood, zip ties still dangling from her wrists, eyes fierce with determination, and felt something break open in his chest. I'd burn the world before I lose you, he whispered. I know, you just proved it. They made it to the ground floor, out into the snow and Christmas lights and the wreckage of Lucas's war. Sirens wailed in the distance. The building behind them was burning. Lucas collapsed into the back of the SUV, Jade climbing in beside him, refusing to let go of his hand even as someone pressed gauze to his wounds. Stay with me, she kept saying. Please, Lucas, stay with me. He squeezed his hand, held on, because leaving her wasn't an option. Not now, not ever. The car pulled away from the burning building, leaving the firestorm behind, and Lucas Gray, monster, killer, king of a violent empire, let himself fall into darkness, knowing he'd done the one thing that mattered. He'd brought her home. Lucas woke to whiteness. Not the sterile white of a hospital, the soft white of fresh sheets and winter light filtering through curtains. He was home, the estate, rebuilt in the 2 weeks since the fire. His chest ached where the bullet had torn through muscle and bone, missing his heart by inches. Missing, but not by much. You're awake? He turned his head carefully. Jade sat in the chair by the window, wrapped in one of his sweaters, bare feet tucked under her. She looked smaller than he remembered, quieter, like something had been carved out of her, and the space hadn't quite filled back in yet. How long? His voice came out rough. 3 days this time. The doctor said your body finally gave in to the exhaustion. She moved to the bed, perched on the edge. You've been in and out for 2 weeks total. 2 weeks. The memories came back in fragments. The surgery, the fever, Jade's hand in his anchoring him when the pain tried to pull him under, her voice reading to him from books he couldn't name. The way she'd refused to leave his side even when Elena made her rest. Volkov? Asked Lucas. Dead. Dmitri, too. Jade's expression didn't change. Most of their syndicates have scattered or sworn allegiance to you. The ones that didn't, she trailed off. Marcus handled them. Lucas could imagine how Marcus had handled them. The city's quiet now, Jade continued. It's the quietest it's been in years. Everyone's too afraid to move against you after what you did. What I did. Lucas closed his eyes. How many? Does it matter? It always matters. Jade was quiet for a long moment. 63. That's what Marcus told me. 63 men died that night because you came for me. The number settled over him like stone. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For all of it. For dragging you into my world, for making you a target, for... His breath caught and pain lanced through his chest. For not being able to let you go when I should have. Jade's hand found his. Lucas, you could have died. The words came out raw. So many times, because of me, because I was selfish enough to keep you close. You saved my life. I put you in danger in the first place. No, I put myself in danger the moment I opened that door. Everything after was just consequence. Lucas looked at her, really looked, at the fading bruise on her cheekbone, the way she held herself a little too carefully, like she was still bracing for impact, the shadows under her eyes that spoke of nightmares. You've been having bad dreams, he said quietly. So have you. You call my name, she offered a small, sad smile. We match. Jade, don't, She stood abruptly, moved back to the window. Don't apologize again. Don't tell me I should have been kept away from this. I'm so tired of people making choices for me. Then I won't. Lucas pushed himself up carefully, ignoring the way his vision swam. I'll give you one instead. She turned. There's a passport in the top drawer of my desk. New identity, bank account with enough money that you'll never have to worry, a plane ticket to anywhere you want to go. He held her gaze. It's yours. No strings, no conditions. Jade stared at him. You're sending me away. I'm setting you free. The words cost him everything. You've been trapped in my world long enough. You deserve a life that doesn't involve looking over your shoulder, a life that's actually yours. And if I don't want that life, then you take it anyway. His voice hardened. Because I won't keep you here, Jade. Not anymore. Not when I know what it costs you. What it costs me? She laughed, sharp and bitter. Do you know what it would cost me to leave? To walk away from you after everything? Safety. Peace. A future that isn't stained with blood. And what would I have? She moved closer, eyes blazing. Some quiet life in some quiet town where I spend every day wondering if you're alive or dead? Where I wake up reaching for you and find nothing? Where everything feels hollow because the only person who ever really saw me is gone? You'd have freedom. I'd have nothing. She stopped at the foot of the bed. Don't you understand? You think you're giving me a choice, but you already took it away the moment you made me care about you. Lucas's chest tightened. Jade, I've been sitting in that chair for 2 weeks watching you fight for your life, watching you bleed and burn with fever and call my name in your sleep. Her voice cracked. And you want me to just leave? Take your money and your freedom and walk away like none of it mattered? It mattered. The words came out broken. That's why you should go. No. She circled the bed, sat beside him, took his face in her hands. That's why I'm staying. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Her thumbs brushed his cheekbones. I'm saying I choose this. I choose you. Not because I'm trapped or scared or don't have options, but because the only place I want to be is wherever you are. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous. She leaned closer, forehead resting against his. Because I've seen what you are, Lucas. I've seen the monster and the man, and I want both. I'll never be what you deserve. Maybe not, but you're what I want, and I'm done pretending that's not enough. Lucas closed his eyes, breathing her in, feeling the impossible weight of her choice settle over him. If you stay, he said quietly, there's no going back. My world doesn't do halfway. My enemies will always see you as a weakness. You'll never be completely safe. I know. You'll see things, terrible things, parts of me I've tried to keep hidden. I know that too. And you'll stay anyway? I'll stay anyway. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Because you were right about one thing. Freedom is overrated when the person you love is bleeding out in a burning building. The word hung between them. Love. Lucas cupped her face, thumb tracing the bruise Volkov had left. I don't know how to love without destroying. Then we'll learn together. Or we'll destroy each other. Either way, I'm not going anywhere. He kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. A promise, a prayer, a surrender. When they finally broke apart, snow had begun to fall outside the window, soft and silent, covering the city in white, erasing the scars, starting fresh. What happens now? Jade whispered. Lucas pulled her close, careful of his wounds, and looked out at the city that both feared and needed him, at the empire built on blood and violence, at the future that stretched ahead, uncertain and dangerous, and theirs. Now we live, however we can, together. Jade settled against him, fitting into the spaces his life had carved out. Together. she echoed. Outside, the city breathed. Christmas lights still flickered in windows. Somewhere, people celebrated, loved, survived. And in a rebuilt estate on the outskirts of the city, a woman who'd opened the wrong door and a man who stopped being a monster long enough to save her found something neither had expected. Not safety, not peace, but each other. And in their world, that was enough. The snow kept falling, the night grew quiet, and Lucas Gray held on to the only good thing he'd ever let himself keep, knowing that love forged in chaos and blood and violence was the kind that lasted, the kind that couldn't be broken, the kind worth burning the world for.